All right, folks, here we go again. This time, after a whole winter of doing videos with German comment, I'll do this one in English. This time we're going out to the Eiffel Mountains and to a historic place high up in the mountains, the Nürburgring racecourse, almost 100 years old, and I think world famous for its dangerous, hilly, curvy course, which has taken many drivers' lives. We're not going to ride the ring, we're going to ride around the ring, and I'll tell you a bit more about this in a bit. Here we have already left the city of Bonn. We've crossed the first mountain range and we're into the next valley, and we're now going to climb out and pass over this succession of climbs and valleys until we get to the Ahr River Valley. As you may have noticed, I have a bit of synchronization issues in this particular video. I screwed up in the beginning of the video when I first edited in Verb Edit, and I can't make it undone, so you'll have to live with it as I do. Now, here's the loop for today. We're going south, we're going clockwise across the mountains to the Ahr River Valley, follow the Ahr River, then turn off into a scenic side valley, and even more side valley, climb up to the Nurburgring, and then go back the other way, and about the other way I will tell you later. As we're climbing, I can tell you a bit about the profile. The Eiffel Mountains are not very high. We will pass by one of the highest peaks there, which is 750 meters roughly, close to our route today. But you know, there's quite a bit of up and down to do. Some steep climbs in the double-digit percentages, but otherwise it is rather good, rather convenient to do. You know, it's not easy, but it is nothing that really overburdens a trained rider. The entire loop is about 163, 164 kilometers or so long, and total climbing was close to 1,900 meters. On most Wednesdays this past winter, we've been doing a longer ride because one of our buddies wanted to grow from a short-range rider to a long-range rider. So he wanted to train himself for the 200-kilometer days that many of us do in a velomobile. Every Wednesday, and with very few exceptions, we got a small group together to do a longer ride. Today, it's just two of us, so the initiator of the Wednesday rides is not even with us, but it's my friend Christian and me, two DF, taking on this loop, and you will see he has modified his DF a little bit with some features like a quickly detachable front hatch and things like that. And he's battling with some of the consequences. He has two idlers in front, and one doesn't seem to be working, so we will have some issues as we do this loop with us, but you will find out later. Now, we've completed that first climb, and the mountain range you see in the far distance, that's where we're going. That is the first range of the Eiffel Mountains, the first proper mountain range, which we will take, and we're aiming for the mountains behind that range. Now, this is the end of this valley hopping that we have to do in the beginning. This is the Ahr River Valley, a beautiful valley that I have featured in a number of my videos that we're now riding down into. It's Germany's most northern, or actually I think Europe's most northern red wine growing area. It's Pinot Noir. I think 80% of all the grapes there are Pinot Noir. This is a beautiful downhill. Actually, I have not been riding it down for quite a while. I've used it a lot more for riding up because it's also a pleasant climb, because the road is smooth and the bends are nice and the views are fantastic. So that's something that makes climbing a bit more comfortable, and there isn't that much traffic on this route, not particularly during the week. The weekends can be different, but during the week this is a rather quiet road. Isn't this nice with the vineyards to the left and right? No, I really like this valley, and it's actually very close to home. It's only about 25 kilometers from home, and you're into this beautiful scenery. The village you see to the left, or town maybe, better call it a town, is called Dernau. It's one of the well-known wine villages along this river valley. So now we're down by the valley floor and taking the route upstream. You can't see it from here, but generally the mountains on the south side of the river, which has a general tendency of flowing from the east to the west until it mouths into the Rhine. These mountains on the south side are higher. That's where we're going. But for now, we're traveling that part of the Aar River Valley that has a lot of wine growing. It's from here towards the end of the river, where all the wine is grown, and a lot of that is cultivated on these hand-built terraces, which have been built and maintained and cultivated over many generations, and it's quite remarkable. You know, it's a very labor-intensive way of growing grapes, and fortunately the winemakers here have upgraded their products significantly over the past few decades. So today they are getting some real money for their products, which is good, because otherwise you couldn't be doing this. Now ahead is the Castle Rock of Altenaar. You see there's a little hut on top of the one peak that you see. The little peak to the side actually isn't a peak, but it's the ruins of the castle. It just looks like a peak from this side. If you look at it from the other side, you will see that it is the ruins of the dungeon of a former castle that stood there. Now beyond Altenaar, there is much less wine growing. I think beyond the next town, which is Kreuzberg, which is to the left. You can't see it here because it's across a meadow, is the last one where you have some significant wine growing. And from here on, upstream, it is all just forests and some green fields, but no wine growing anymore. We'll continue for just a bit longer until the next town, when we turn off into this valley here, which is a smaller valley, narrow. It is called the Kesseling Valley because the central village in this valley is called Kesseling. And here I got my other camera issues because the power bank had turned off, and I had taken the battery out because the battery had caused me issues, and so I got no data recording at all, and I got only that one clip, because what you see now is already the next villages, the side village to the side village. That's an even smaller one. You see that the road is even smaller. It's about only half the width of the previous road. but there's also very little traffic. And this we will continue for a while. I think all in all it is a 12-kilometer stretch in this side valley where we generally climb up, where we started out at something like 260 meters and we're going up to 600 meters. Gentle at first and steeper in the end of this valley. Now, sometimes there are some hills in between where you have to climb a bit more. You see here it's currently 5-6%. So you need to shift down, but most of the time it is just a 2 to 3% incline. That is very good to ride. The Eifel region, with its many mountains, traditionally has been a very poor part of West Germany, and I believe that it has been difficult to bring significant industry here. So the race course, when it was built in the 1920s, was a major factor because it brought hundreds of thousands of people into the region every year. Sorry. It has all sorts of side activities and businesses that have been attracted by the race course. And actually, it's not just, and it wasn't just the Formula One races that have been going on there, or particularly in the 1930s, those spectacular battles between Audi and Mercedes over who could build the fastest race cars and things like that. But it is also a year-round set of activities. You can ride that race course with your own car. There are other championship series going on. There's all sorts of things. There's even a cycling event on the ring every year. Hasn't taken place last year because of the pandemic and won't be taking place this year because of the pandemic. But for once there is I think an entire weekend which is devoted to cycling. You have road bike races on the old ring, and you have open cycling on the ring and what have you. And the attraction is that these individual rides, be it by car, be it by motorcycle or bicycle, always happen on the old ring, on the so-called northern slope, a northern loop, or whatever you want to call it, which is the traditional ring. The modern ring is a Formula One race course, where it is rather flat. It is in the open, so that from the stands you can actually overlook most of the race course, so you can see most of the action. Whereas on the traditional course, you would only get a very limited view of the action, because most of the action would take place in the forests somewhere and up and down hills, and yes, you could watch the race on a particular position on the track, but all you would see was that one bend or that one downhill, or just that little segment of the course that you'd be able to watch. And this is, of course, in commercialized times, is totally impossible, so it all has to be exposed to the spectators. So the modern ring is much more boring, but the old ring is an attraction to ride on, even for cyclists. Okay, I hope that you have had an eye on the valley, on the scenery, while I was talking about this old race course and stuff, because it's really pretty. This is beautiful countryside and very scenic. It's amazing how close it is to major metropolitan areas, and still attracts so little traffic, so few people during the week. And that's what we like about it. That's why the Eifel region is a prime destination for road bikers, because you have thousands of uphills and downhills, many of them pretty steep, and you have space. You know, there is open road, and it is not crowded with cars, so you can really go out and ride with your buddies or alone, like we do today. Now we're getting into some steeper terrain as we're approaching the final third of this valley, where we have to make our way up to the plateau level. Now, the Eiffel Mountains essentially is a plateau which has been carved by volcanoes into the one direction, and by rivers and erosion into the other direction. So many of the mountains have been created through volcanic activity, and many of the valleys have been shaped by rivers, which makes it nice to ride, but it also means that once you cannot follow a river or creek any longer, you have to climb up that mountain and find the next valley to ride in, or find a stretch of plateau which is good to ride on. Now, this is the village of Keltenborn, which is the second of three villages in this valley. Many times in this region, the villages always seem to be on a steep uphill. I don't know why. They are not down in the valley most of the time, but they somehow are built on the slope of a mountain, like this one. We could have continued on a different side road in that village back there, but we'll take this one because both of these roads end up on the same major road, but this is the nicer route. And you see, it is brand new. I think when I rode here the last time, which is probably like 2 or 3 years ago, the road was certainly not as nice as it is now. It must have been redone, at least from this village towards the next, in between. Now we should be listening to one of the drivers, because he has a message for us.
Da kann man jetzt da oben schon die Bundesstraße sehen. Da oben, wo die Bäume stehen. Da müssen wir hin.
Yeah, that's it. He has been telling us that up there, where the trees can be seen on the horizon there, that's where the major road, the Federer Road, is. That's where we have to go up to, and in order to get there, we have to ride through the next village, which again is another fairly steep uphill. Once the elevation or the incline reading will have adjusted to it, you will see that it's actually a double-digit climb of 10 to 13% or so that you have to do. So it is quite some work towards the end of this beautiful ride up here. Yeah, it makes it a bit easier to put both arms out, gives you some extra cooling, and it changes the position of the upper body just a bit, and that allows you to put a bit more power out onto the cranks to master this climb. And the climb continues beyond the village, so it's quite some work. I think we'll have to climb another 35 meters or so to get to the main road. And you begin to see now what the major attraction for a touring cyclist is of this area, and that is the panorama. That is the great views that you have, because once you're up on the hilltops, you get the idea of not just it being an endless sequence of valleys, but you're actually riding on top of it, and you can look down, and you can look far across the countryside. And I hope you will see that as we approach the hilltop area, which is less forested. There's more greenland, and that is also there is more view. There is more landscape to be seen, and not just trees. Let's listen in on the two guys at the end of their climb here.
Ist auf jeden Fall sehr spannend gerade. Jetzt U-Turn, ne?
Ja.
Ne, hier bin ich noch nicht hochgefahren, das war ein anderer Aufstieg. Da sind wir irgendwo im Wald rausgekommen.
Aber das ist schön, das
Ja.
musst du zugeben.
Ja, war auch einsam, aber ich glaube, das war ein anderer. Irgendwie ein anderes Tal. Komisch.
Aber hier ist jetzt ein bisschen Schluss mit der Einsamkeit, weil hier ist ordentlich Verkehr. So wie du siehst.
Okay, now this road has a lot of traffic, particularly on the weekends, because you have all those wannabe racers riding towards the Nürburgring or around it on these good and wide roads that have been built around the ring. You just saw me pointing towards a peak over to the right side. That is the highest mountain here in this part of the Eiffel Mountains. It's called the Hohe Acht. As you can see for yourself, we're now in a different kind of terrain, away from the narrow valleys, on a wide plateau type of region, which is characterized by gently rolling terrain. So we're going up, but just very gently, and we will be going down also very gently, which especially for the downhills makes for some fantastic riding. You know, the uphills is easy, but the downhills is just a blast, and you'll get to see a bit of it. I don't give you all of that, I'll just give you a few of those scenes. The old Nordschleife, the classic race course, is to the right side. Well, now actually, since we're looking back, it's to the left side, but you know, into the direction of travel on the right, behind those trees, runs the old race course, and sometimes it comes very close to this road, because this road essentially follows the classic race course, because it leads to the main entrance of the racing area. That's fantastic. That's just rolling, you know, up to 99 kilometers an hour. That's race feeling outside of the race course. There you see one of those entrances for service cars, and I think it's also a parking lot for spectators, which is open for certain events. So you see the entire area is fenced in carefully, because otherwise you would have spectators by the tracks with their cars being parked all over the main road here. There you get to see a little bit of the racecourse. You know, behind the fence there, that is the traditional racecourse. I have to say, this is perfect velomobile terrain. You know, as much as I prefer emission-free traveling, but we're really benefiting from the petrol heads of this area, because it makes for some beautifully designed and well-maintained roads out in the countryside. And because of the pandemic, there are no events going on at the ring now, so there's much less reason for people to come here by car and make our lives complicated. Now we're turning onto Federer Road number 258, which is not in any way famous, but it's worth noting because it runs through the main part of the race course area, which is one of the reasons why we are not going to stay on this road for very long. So you see, just a few kilometers down that road, we have turned off again, because we want to go around the entire extended area of the race course on side roads. And not ride through it on the major through and access road, which is the B258. So now we're back to smaller roads, which means a bit more climbing, but has much better views, I'd say, and is much more pleasant to ride. And we still have the race course to the right of us. This time it is the new Nürburgring, which is the modern, the Formula One race course, which is not located deep in the forests and into the very profiled part of the terrain, but is built in the plateau region, so it was much easier to build a modern and viewer-friendly racecourse. And this is what we like, going through small villages, and then you head out of that village and you see, you know, there's a downhill coming up, and you're taking advantage of that downhill, picking up a bit of speed in order to use the momentum on the next uphill, which will certainly come because you can see it from afar already. And that's where we are, and that's why you see my head moving to the left and right here, because I'm trying to put some extra power on the cranks to keep up the speed up that hill. And we've crossed the hill. Beyond the hill there's the next gentle downhill with great views again. Now this is why we're here. That is why we chose this route, not only because of this famous destination, but also it is so nice. It is so scenic to be crossing this area. And again, head shaking because I'm working hard to go up that hill with as much momentum as possible. And this hilltop will be the location of a quick stop, the only stop that we do on this road, except for the two mechanicals that we had, to take a break and to eat something and to chat a little bit before we go on. All right, picnic is done, and off we go again and continue. Same area, same pleasant ride-in of rolling hills, gently down, gently up. Just fantastic, and a perfect day for this. So here we've been climbing through another little village up again, and the uphill continues beyond the village. But one of those uphills that I also like a lot because it is gentle, it offers those views, and it is just gorgeous. Take a look around, and you see how far the view extends into all directions. So now this road has taken us to one of those main entries to the Nürburgring racecourse area. And my buddy Christian has been so attracted by this that he has totally missed the turnoff, and he's ahead and riding towards the racecourse area. And so what I'll do is I'll just wait at the turnoff here until he realizes his mistake and comes back, doing the roundabout there in the distance, and coming back here. Cut, and there he comes. This little yellow dot in the distance, that's him. And I'll give him another sign to let him know that it was right to turn back. That's where we're going, to the left, back towards another small road. All right, and this is the final stretch of riding around the racecourse. Again, to the right here, the racecourse terrain continues. There are occasional access roads for service cars, and there's the Nurburgring campsite, and I think some more parking lots for visitors. And there is more good to ride side roads with essentially no traffic. See, there's another one of those areas. This is the Nürburgring camping area. It's a huge campsite for spectator camping. Now I think it is closed, or almost closed. You see on the track graph there that we're at the bottom, we're at the furthest away from home point of this loop, and it is about the point where we will begin to end the ride around the Nürburgring, because this is more or less where also the race course area ends. And now for us the issue is we have to get back home, and that means we have to first find a good route back down into the Ahr River Valley, because we have to cross that anyway. So we have to find a road that goes down into the river valley, so that we can then take another ride out of the Ahr River Valley, and not the one that we've been coming on. Now approaching the village of Mühlenbach. I'm not familiar with this town or with this particular area here, so I've trusted the routing software that I used to draw that to give us the best route, and it has taken me on this cycling route. And we're missing a turn here. We should have gone right, where we took a left turn, or left fork here, but it doesn't matter. We will reconnect with the right fork a bit further down. But we could have taken the road which runs further to the west here, but apparently the disadvantage would have been we would have gone down into a valley further and would have had to ride out of it again in order to cross the little hill range that you see in the distance. That's where we're heading now. There we will pick up the B258 again, and that will take us down into the Ahr River Valley.
Laut meinem Track wäre es doch die MGB-Strecke gewesen.
Bitte?
Die rechts ab da, ne?
Ja, ja, das wäre es die gewesen, bei mir auch.
Ich weiß nicht, wo wir jetzt hier rauskommen.
Ich würde sagen, wir bleiben jetzt hier schlicht.
Okay.
Man kann auf die andere Strecke auch wieder drauf kommen.
Ja, dann versuchen wir es. Ich kenne mich hier null, also.
Yeah, you can tell that we're not really used to trail riding. I mean, I do a lot of trail riding also, but I mostly ride the trails in areas that I know very well, and I know the trails. So I exactly know when it is feasible to ride, and how I get to which point and so on. Here with these trails, you would never know. They might continue as unpaved roads beyond the next corner. It can be. Like look at the way it continues straight ahead, and that's why I don't like it. But we're back to the road. We have climbed through another village, and now we have to tackle that range that I've shown to you earlier. We have to go up here and across here, and then we're going to pick up the Federer Road 258, which is also a road. I know where it is, and I know where it ends, because I have been passing that village a lot, but I have never ridden the 258, neither up into the mountains nor down into the valley. So it's a first for me also. I don't like it particularly, and you will see why when we get there. A final look around as we leave this beautiful area. Last chance to get this super 360-degree panorama. And this now is Federer Road 258. The one that takes us straight down into the Aar River Valley. It's going to be a downhill all along from here, and it is more or less straight. So that's why we're using it, because we want to get back down into the river valley without further deviation. You can see here why I don't like it, particularly to ride on this road. Cyclists are expected, well, they are not expected to use this road in the first place, but they're allowed to, but they're expected then to ride on the shoulder, which is not always really good to ride on, because there's broken glass, there's other kind of debris, and I don't feel comfortable doing 70 plus kilometers an hour on the shoulder here. We don't have rumble strips, fortunately, but look at those cars passing me now. They pass in the lane, and they feel perfectly entitled to do so, because I'm not in the lane. I'm beyond the lane, but they don't realize that I might need more space because of gusty winds. I might have to go around debris. So that's not something that I am very fond of. But otherwise, as you can see, here's no shoulder. Well, there's the shoulder again. When there is no traffic, we always take the lane and stay there. Also, when we feel that it is mandatory for us, for our safety, to do so. Fortunately, there is not much traffic today, and again, you see here for the entire period that I showed to you now, there is no traffic in our lane. There will be, but here now for quite a bit there isn't any. Okay, now this is it. This is the town of Musch that we're approaching now, back on the Aar River, and this is where we have to put in a mechanical stop because Christian's drivetrain is not working properly. And I think it is mostly due to the second idler he has installed for the return chain. So after getting his hands totally dirty, we ride on, but still the problem isn't solved, so we put in another stop so that he can fiddle a bit more on the way how the idler grabs the chain. Okay, so that's done, and we ride on. For a few kilometers, we follow the Aar River Valley downstream now. I'm not showing you much of that, just a little bit, to visualize the change of atmosphere, because we're back into a deep river valley. And as we were crossing the last village, one of those farm trucks pulled out and now is right in ahead of us. Limited speed to 40 kilometers, which means that it's not going to be any faster, but we also can't pass because there's too much oncoming traffic. Then there was a little climb, and he, of course, disappeared. But now, since we're behind that climb, we're catching up pretty quickly, I believe, because we are now doing the normal speed in this R River Valley going downstream, which is often around 50 kilometers an hour, and that a guy can only do 45. He's allowed 40, so 45 will be tolerated. But you will see around the next corner, we will see his tail again. Yeah, there he is. So we're reaching the turnoff. We are now heading towards Bad Münstereifel along a road which crosses the divide, the watershed between the R River Valley system and the Erft River Valley system. So on our side of the mountains here, all the creeks will mouth into the R River. Once we've crossed the watershed, all the creeks will mouth into the Erft River on the other side of the mountains. The good thing is that this climb has a bike trail, a well-maintained bike trail that you can follow all the time. You can also follow it downhill on the other side of the watershed, but we don't. You know, downhill we always take the road because at 70 kilometers or more, the bike path is not a proper place to be. This is also not a very spectacular route. There are more scenic ones and there are more demanding ones. But since this is our return ride, we keep it simple. So this is a fairly straightforward way to cut across the mountains here, and then to leave the Eiffel Mountains generally beyond Bad Münstereifel along the Erft River Valley, which makes for a most convenient way of exiting the mountains and returning into the plain country that extends between the Eiffel Mountains and the Rhine River mountain range. And that's where we are now. We are back into that area in between these two mountains. And I've chosen a slightly different ride towards home for this particular loop, one that I normally don't take, because normally we ride this route the other direction when we go into the mountains. And to ride out, I have avoided a very steep climb on a busy road in favor of this side road, which is actually quite pretty, and I didn't expect it to be so pretty, so I will probably use this route more often. Actually, this could be called the last of the foothills of the Eifel mountain area, because from here you can see that the country opens up, and you can see far into this big basin, where in the far distance you see another not very high mountain range. That is the range that runs along the Rhine River Valley. That's where we're ultimately heading. See a bit of Eifel foothill mountains on the right side, while we follow the country roads here into the basin. it's good riding here. You know, many of the less hilly routes that I have done and prepared for our gang of riders are in this area, because you have so many roads. It is very, very gently rolling at best. Excellent riding terrain. I'm not showing much of that here now, because go through my channel archives and you will find plenty of videos of this area and its fantastic country roads, which are perfect for velomobiles. I leave out the route across the villages because it's standard, and we're almost back to Bonn now. I've, for this particular loop, chosen a slightly different entry to the city, running on a road that goes parallel to the motorway, and is good and fast to ride. It's a straight road, and once you get to the city limits, it continues on into a gentle downhill and takes you down the hill to home. Okay, and that's where we are, back home. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you have liked it, and stay tuned to my channel. Like and subscribe, and I hope to see you sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.